Hello and welcome to another trailer breakdown from the Game Awards. Today joining me is Katie Cat.
Hi, everyone.
And we have got today Death Stranding, which is a game by Hideo Kojima. I love Kojima, he's great. And I'm quite surprised by this new video coming out. I wasn't expecting one so quickly, but this is really cool. He means business, and boy,
Oh,
is he
yeah,
working overtime. My goodness.
for sure.
Um, Before we get into the actual trailer, let's talk about the game itself. And it was a question you had, right, Katie?
Yeah, I'm kind of interested in knowing what consoles it's coming out on.
So, if it were this, if we were talking about the Kojima from 2 years ago, before the whole Konami thing happened, 2.5, maybe 3 years ago, I'd say PlayStation exclusive.
Yeah,
Just because he has always been kind of a PlayStation guy. He's been a very diehard loyalist when it comes to that for
yeah,
many,
for
many
sure.
years. But the Kojima from 3 years ago is not the Kojima from today.
No.
He went from a very loyalistic, very Japanese only audience. He didn't spend too much time around his English speaking fans.
Yeah,
And that's to be fairly understood. I mean, he's got a life over in Japan. But the whole situation with Konami really showed him how many international fans that he had, and
yeah,
really made it clear to him that he's got supporters from everywhere. And
yeah,
some of his most ardent defenders are those that are not, necessarily Japanese.
yeah,
And so
exactly.
you see that with the people that he's hanging out with, the people that he's communicating with, the fact that he was so overwhelmed by the not only the West, but the European response to him and to his situation, and the
Hmm.
fact that all these fans came out of the woodwork and were solidly behind him. So I think he might want to broaden his options a little bit. I think that's completely a possibility. I think that's something that he very well might be thinking about.
Yeah.
And so I think there's a good possibility that he will try to branch out the game a little bit more. Now
Well,
he
that's
is being
good.
funded heavily by Sony, which means they might push for an exclusive release. But I hope he realizes that there's nothing wrong with branching out your title
No,
to multiple
exactly.
consoles. It's not a bad thing to allow more people to see and play your content. Now, if there's a system requirements that other systems can't reach, then obviously no. But
Yeah,
I can't see why he wouldn't at least you know
consider it anyways.
consider like a Steam release or a PC release, and
Yeah,
quite possibly an Xbox release as well. So these are things that I hope we'll see. I really hope he does take that to heart. So
yeah,
now
definitely.
that that's out of the way here, let's look at the trailer itself. We've got the whole standard intro that's kind of been done here. Sony Interactive Entertainment presents
Hmm.
a very similar first like little crawl here. It's a camera really low to the ground, going over top of a Death Stranding. If you don't know what that term means or where that came from, Death Stranding is when ocean creatures en masse are washed up onto beaches, and the reason why I call it a Death Stranding is because they are all dead.
Yeah,
So they died in the ocean, kind of got put together into a mass, and
and
then were
just
dumped
washed up on
by the
shore.
tides, yeah, onto the ocean, or sorry, onto the beachfront.
Yeah.
There is such a thing as a live stranding where a lot of the animals are alive, and that's when you get whales
Hmm.
and dolphins and other sea creatures, and you're able to, in some cases, get them back out into the ocean,
Yeah.
and they're fine. But in this case, this is Death Stranding, so there's this very heavy death feeling of the game here as we progress through the beginning of this trailer here. If you notice here, we have this returning theme of ropes and these connection ties.
Hmm.
If you've been reading the articles where the interviewers are talking to Kojima, you see that that's a main theme of what he wants. And,
Yeah.
referring back to the early days of man, he says, humans made tools, and so the first tool that they made was sticks. The second tool that they made were ropes. The first tool was to keep things away, and the second tool was to tie things down that were important, or to keep things close that were important, or to keep people together, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So ropes and sticks are a very interesting way of looking at gaming, because a stick is a communicator of defense and strength, and a rope is a communicator of ownership, of safety, of a couple other things. The first trailer, they opened up with that poem from Auguries of Innocence by William Blake, To See the World. And that's a very interesting poem. And
beautiful poem, actually.
Kind of shows the emphasis that is being put on the story that's going to be in this game.
Yeah.
And we know that Kojima is a great storyteller, and he doesn't necessarily always do it through language. He does it a lot through game mechanics and the experience that the people go through.
The visual experience.
So in this, continuing on here in the trailer, about 30 seconds in here, we're going to see this little broken doll that is lying in the mud, and it's got a leg missing, and it's very sad. This is going to be very important to the direction of this game into the ultimate gameplay, which is what we're really here to discuss, is what is this game going to be like? Is this going to be like Silent Hill? Or is it going to be like Metal Gear Solid, where it's a very combat stealthy game? I think, personally, after having reviewed this, and I think a lot of people had kind of hit on this, is that we're kind of thinking that it's going to be both.
That's what I was actually getting the feel of. I have the feeling like it's going to be a bit of both.
Now, a lot of people were making a big deal about the black liquid that we saw in the first trailer, saying that it represents oil, but it didn't have necessarily the composition of oil on the ground.
No. For me, I felt like it was a symbol of like death. That's what I get the feeling of.
Yeah, and I think that's really what it boils down to.
Yeah.
It's oily and grimy in its appearance because it's messy and it's gross and it's disgusting.
It's
and
dark and
but it's far too watery to necessarily represent straight up oil. So, or like crude oil, the thing that people were kind of referring to.
Yeah.
I think really what we have here is we have a depiction that the oceans have gone sour, and that for whatever reason, normally the ocean is a place of life and a place of creating sustenance for people who live near the coast. And in this case, it is not.
No,
and in fact, it might be the exact opposite.
Yeah, death and loss.
Which plays into the concept that this might not be a game that's played on planet Earth. And the reason for that is in the first trailer, when we had naked Norman Reedus, and I know that you were kind of lamenting the fact that we didn't have another naked Norman Reedus in this trailer. In the first one, Norman Reedus had some dog tags around his neck.
Yeah, I noticed
and
that.
etched into the dog tags was a couple of scientific equations. The Dirac equation, which deals with particle physics, and it kind of leads into quantum mechanics. And, everybody knows that equation off the top of their head, right?
Yeah.
Clearly everybody knows that. I don't need to talk about that too much. And everybody knows the Schwarzschild radius equation, correct? The one that basically puts out the science for what black holes potentially are, particularly dealing with the event horizon. That's what's referred to as the Schwarzschild radius. With those components, I think what we're seeing is not Earth or life as we know it. Much like Silent Hills again, we're getting like this separation of worlds, where there's this either world within a world, or it's out of phase with our world, or it's a step off from our world, or for whatever reason we are seeing a world within a world where there is no sustenance, not from the oceans. It's just there's death everywhere. And as we keep playing through this trailer here, We finally get to see this. We see some airplanes. We do see the rainbow in the sky. Do you notice that too?
I noticed that. I was kind of wondering about that.
What do you notice about that rainbow that seems slightly off at first?
It's like upside down.
Absolutely.
That's the one thing that's like throwing me off.
It's an upside down rainbow.
Yeah.
So that's quite weird. And it is quite weird to see a rainbow in this setting because as we see, this city is in like total
ruins.
Like this is like World War II like devastation for cities. There's not a habitable building left. And we do see like these are definitely World War II-esque fighter planes. They are propeller based. They're not jet engines. We see these ropes trailing out from them again. We see the upside down rainbow, and I'm really gotta suggest here that this is not planet Earth. This is a different place that's a reflection of it. So we might see that this is very much a reflection world, or that whole Silent Hills kind of style and symbolism there. The planes really do seem to set now that there is going to be combat in this game. I don't think you'd have that if it weren't. So just moving along here. This guy's pin. His pin says bridges, and it's got a picture of, it looks like a landmass map, but it's got like a spider web over top of it. The symbolism here in his pin, I think what that kind of shows is this guy might be a person who was in control of an organization or kind of like or a CEO. An industry. Like, yeah, he looks like a CEO. He's got some really rich glasses on. Strangely enough, he's got some indented tattoos on his forehead and wrapping around his head.
I didn't even notice that until now, actually.
They kind of almost look like letters, or they kind of look like scar marks, like his head was cut open and then like kind of stitched back together after they like cut out his brain. Which leads me again to that this might be a post-life world. This might be like a kind of like a purgatory thing, or like a potentially maybe a hell or something like that, where you see, you know, this guy has potentially, maybe he's died once before. Maybe
that is very possible, actually.
So this has this whole image where he turns around, he looks up, and he's looking at the sky, and you get to see this detail on him with this very expensive business suit, with his very expensive tie, he's also got, you know, this pin showing possibly some kind of webbing over top of the landmass, which means, you know, webbing, more connections, more strings, more ropes, right? This could have a variety of meanings that are, you know, really hidden and kind of suggesting that a connected world. Maybe it was some kind of science experiment gone wrong. He's looking at things. He doesn't really understand necessarily what's going on. He's trying to find cover. He's trying to stay out of sight.
It also could be that people are also looking for him too, and that's why he's trying to hide.
Yeah, well, we see here that he is definitely hiding from this tank here that shows up. Let's just pause this here. This tank here with, like, I mean, the amount of blood and guts on this tank it's
pretty substantial.
We've got something from inside the tank. It looks like the tank is almost biological inside. We see that it's got stuff spilling out of it from the inside. Then we see that there's stuff tied down and tied to it and connected to it on top.
Half of it doesn't even look human.
Yeah, it's got some human femurs attached to the side of it. It does have a little spout there for, looks like, you know, that's maybe to its fuel intake, but you know, why that's there exactly in that position, we don't know. You know, as it comes along here a little bit, we see more bones, more skeletal remains attached to it. We see that it's covered in this kind of, it's leaking or oozing this black liquid again. We see, you know, more abnormal or inhuman bits attached to it coming off. And then at the back of it, and here we're going to pause it right here, where we got the upside down rainbow in the distance.
There's another rope there.
There's more ropes coming out of this thing that appear to be attached to these soldiers.
And even the soldiers don't even look alive.
It looks as if you look at their faces, it looks as if they're skeletal.
Yeah.
You look at their hands; they don't have skin on their
No.
hands. They're bones. They're wielding World War II-esque weapons. Advanced armor, though. A lot of this armor is further along, more like 1990s, 1980 kind of helmets and gear packs here. And I don't think Kojima would overlook something this important. So I think that this conjunction of time zones again is really pointing, and we're going to see this later on here. I'll point it out again here. But in one hand, they've got World War II weapons.
Yeah.
And they seem to have other things from other time zones. So this really is a mix mash of time and historical world wars kind of showcasing here.
It could be like you could even be jumping through different times in this game as well.
Possibly, or it's like that one Doctor Whovian the season premiere the other year where he's on a planet where they're just using technology from all over the place and whatever they can get their hands on to continue this war that's gone on for centuries and centuries. As we duck back under, the guy clearly doesn't want to be spotted, obviously. We've got this oil now, water, icky stuff, blood, black blood maybe.
That's kind of what I got too. It's just like blood, really.
Now this very much more watery. It's not as viscous as the other liquid. Comes back up. And he looks like he's not certain, what's going on. He looks like he is fairly confused, but he's not confused enough to know that he's got to take his little valve thing and hook it into this little canister. And I do want to point this out. We can kind of see past his glove into his wrist there, and we see the same wrist device that was on Norman Reedus's character in the first trailer.
Oh, okay, I see it now too.
Yeah, right there. Yeah. And so that's very interesting. That's very interesting to make note of. So continuing on here, we see that in fact it's a baby inside this device. It says ensure lock is tight, so there's some science behind this device here. And this is going to get really creepy here in a second. And then watch right there, the baby doll is grabbed by one of these rope things, and it drags it away.
It's definitely a huge symbol there.
Whatever that means, we'll kind of get into this a little bit more. We can see that he's got that handcuff hanging down. This could mean a variety of things. This could mean, they were holding on to something important. Maybe they're all criminals. Maybe this is a sci-fi prison. And then, of course, this really creepy moment here where the baby looks out at the camera. This is important to note here. He opens up his right eye. He's looking out at something. They're both kind of looking towards the camera, which is super creepy to me. I don't know. Then he ducks inside and he goes into the tunnel again. And there were a bunch of sea life to the right and left there. Pretty messy. And now the camera just kind of follows along. Everything's bombed out. Everything's shelled.
I want to know what's with the red light.
The doll starts glowing again for some odd reason.
I want to know what's with that. You can see more rope there too.
Yeah, you see tons of it. If you slow it down and you put it to maximum, you can see this entire tunnel
is just filled with
covered in these ropes and these ties. And now we see, and I'm assuming this is going to be a villain in the game, coming down here. The symbology here is very clear. So he's got more skeletal warriors. They're definitely dead soldiers.
Yeah.
There's some insignias on their shoulders. They're behaving very much like very well-trained soldiers.
Kind of like super soldiers.
Yeah, they're, like I said, their armor, some of it is comprised of kind of a World War II-esque. Their weapons are comprised of World War II-esque. Their backpacks and some of their helmets are a little bit more possibly newer styles. But then we look at this guy here, the center guy. He's got a friggin' headset. He's got glow-in-the-dark goggles. He's got a very new weapon, for sure.
Yeah.
But he definitely has current-day equipment. He's got the headset. He's got the... You can see that the glow from the lenses, so they are working. He's got no insignias that you can see. He's got nothing that really points out his, where he's from, who he's with, what kind of stuff is going on. But then he makes his thing disappear. And he's definitely controlling people, these guys that move along. As they move away from him, their connections to him disengage.
Yeah.
They're still following behind the soldiers. So the soldiers are they still have that rope hanging out behind. But as they move away, his ropes kind of disappear up into him.
Yeah.
So whatever that means... just want to point this out. He's got a compass on his chest, and it starts to spin as the ropes go up into him. Again, stating that this is not on planet Earth, or this is a very much out of the
paranormal.
It's very paranormal what's going on here. Also paranormal is the fact that this guy's black crud stuff that seems to be coming from him in certain places, especially at his eyes, tends to disappear. And of course now this creepy thing with the baby doll is that just like the baby that we saw a few moments ago, his eye opens up, his right eye, and looks up at him like the baby was looking out at the camera, which is really kind of really creepy.
Just a little bit.
Another thing I want to point back to is in the first trailer, Norman Reedus' stomach was kind of carved into an X kind of thing where his belly button should have been.
Yeah.
And that's what you have here in this image of the doll. You have this, big cross.
Okay, I see that.
X cut. And it's very similar. If you actually pull up the two images from the first trailer and this trailer, they're very similar in the way that they look. So that is a good thing to make note of here. And then, of course, at 422, he doesn't have that black crud anymore. And he's all, like, normal looking. And he's definitely got a bit of a grin there. Looks like he's an evil SOB.
Yeah.
And that's why I think he's definitely going to be the villain.
Oh, for sure.
And here we go. Death Stranding. Oh, Kojima. You're going to make me work for this one, aren't you? So, I like his new Kojima Productions logo. I think that's really cool. That's the trailer. So
it looks amazing.
It looks amazing. It looks great. It raises all these questions of what is this game going to be about?
Yeah, exactly. What's happening? Like the trailer it really doesn't say a whole lot about the game. And that's where you get a lot of people wanting to play it and find out what's going on.
For those people who were really hoping for a new Silent Hills and that like insane gore that you saw in like, Pyramid Head and all the crazy stuff that you saw in those previous
I have a feeling this is going to make up for it.
I feel that it's going to be there because of the scene with the tank.
Yeah.
We're definitely going to see some crazy gore.
Oh, absolutely.
Gross, insane stuff. So if you were looking or if you were sad that you weren't going to get that, first of all, you might want to see a doctor. But second of all, it's definitely coming for you. So don't get too sad about it. So the imagery is very clear in showing broken connections, cut connections that have resulted or been an effect of some kind of a great death, which is the Death Stranding. The confirmation of weapons and the war zone state. This is going to double down on the concept that there is a combat element, and Kojima has said numerous times that the rope and the stick mechanics being traditional weaponry and guns and that, are going to be in there, but so is this new mechanic of connecting to people with these kinds of rope things. Now, what does that exactly mean? We don't really know, because if you were to try to describe a stealth action game before Metal Gear came out the first time, people didn't really understand what you were talking about. They're like, if I got a gun, I got a gun, I'm going to shoot people. That's just the way that video games work. What are you talking about? This stealth mechanic thing was a new thing, and Kojima kind of set the bar for that.
Yeah.
But he's also made it clear that it's an adventure game and an open world game.
Which is going to be nice.
Yeah, so I think basically what we can draw from this and what we can say that this game will be is it's going to be a new multiplayer game that focuses on possibly connecting in with avatars that are connected to one central character, or whether it's an NPC or whether it's another player. You're connecting with people. When you die, you might need to be reconnected to the kind of the master unit or the main character or some aspect of that. It would really change around the dynamics of like a Battlefield kind of experience, especially if it was a lot more based on like survival and adventure and much more big open world map. Then there's a ton more that you can do with that kind of a scenario. So the gameplay, I think we're going to find, is it's going to be a shooter. It's going to have a good survival mechanic. It's going to have a huge mechanic on hiding, on stealth, on fear, on really making that horror game prevalent.
Yeah.
I think we're going to see a ton of puzzles, things to solve, things to kind of work out. We're definitely going to see that the protagonists, the heroes, are going to be these characters that have these handcuffs on them. We're going to find out what those handcuffs are there for. I think this is either going to be a sci-fi prison or some kind of like future prison where they've put all of the, the murderers and all of the warmongers, and maybe that's where everybody goes, kind of like a scientific purgatory.
Yeah.
That's been built by these. In the first trailer we saw these strange creatures floating in the sky. Maybe it's them, and they're trying to sort through the people who just can't leave the violence and the blood and the terror, and that. So it might be this purgatory-esque kind of feeling.
Yeah.
I think that's where we're starting to kind of see this game take place, inside this big massive open world where you're trying to either get out or become the villain. And that would fit into Kojima's writing styles, at least a little bit. I'm fairly confident. So I think what we've got here is a crazy experience, an insane experience that's going to be really, really cool. This gives me a little bit more of an idea of where Kojima is going with this, and I think he's really going to end up creating this new genre of game. If anybody can do it, I think Kojima can.
Absolutely.
Thank you for joining us for this in-depth look and deconstruction of this trailer.
Thank you, guys. Please like and subscribe to our channel.
Hey everybody, thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. It helps us out a ton when you do that. Check out this video. It's one of our favorite things that we've done so far on our channel. And here's some more stuff you might like. See the description below for links to our Sugar Bomb forum and our mods on Nexus Mods.